Hi, this is Anita Pointer of the Pointer Sisters, and you're listening to Neal Jones, Inside Your Head.
Welcome to Inside Your Head. This is Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by Lord Graham Russell of the legendary band Air Supply. It's very cool to talk with you.
Great to be with you too, Neal. Thank you for persevering with me this morning.
Oh, no worries. No worries. It's a whole new world where you can talk to people across the country, across the world here online.
It is amazing. It's still baffling to me how it works. I have no idea how it works, but I know it. I only know that it does.
Yeah, especially right now where a lot of people can't, get into contact with people. It's good to have this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it's brought a lot of people out of the shadows because they've had to learn how to do it. Otherwise, they don't keep in touch.
So 45th year of Air Supply.
Yep, 45 years and counting. We're going on into our 46th soon. But yeah, it's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing. And so when I, read that, I always think, like, what's the age range of the fans? Because I would assume it's some people that's been with you since the beginning and people born after, you started.
It's the demographic is rather large. We get a lot of kids too, even 10, 12-year-olds, simply because they hear the music because their parents or their grandparents play it all the time. And it's all, we always have songs in movies, so it kind of transcends generations, which is good for us. But, we get a lot of older people too, mature people, even people my age. And we get everybody, because the music isn't really a certain age group, I mean, a lot of our songs are very romantic songs, big epic ballads, which a lot of people like, even older people, younger people like them too,
Yeah. When you guys started, 45 years ago, because I was reading an interview you did where you said you still get goosebumps when you play like your songs, because it's one specifically because it was about, people think it's a romantic song, but it was really about how people didn't accept the band at the time. Yeah,
well, that's true. I mean, when we first began, we had a lot of trouble being liked for who we are, for who we were. The thing is this: Russell and I were in Superstar for almost 2 years, and when we came out, we had a hit record. We put a record out. So the record was out before the band was. Normally, it's the other way. It's the other way around. So people liked the song, but they didn't know who we were. And normally, there's a band that's been around for a long time. Then they put a record out. They go, "Oh, I know that band." So it was reversed for us. So it took us a while to get people to realize that that's us. That's our record.
Yeah. Well, what's that like, your first record being such a success? Like, because as far as I know, I don't think either of you fell into any, like, the pitfalls of what people think of as rock stars.
Right. Well, we didn't, no. Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, we were a little older when we first achieved any success in Australia. I mean, I was 26 and Russell was 27. Normally for a young artist, that's kind of old, I mean, nowadays there are singers that are 15, 16 years old, they're achieving success. But in those days, it was usually around 20, 21, all the young bands. But we were a little older, so we were a little wiser, I hope. But it was bizarre. We were in Superstar, we came out, and the next week, I mean, our first single just went straight to, in Australia, went straight to number one, and nobody knew who we were. So it was a strange dichotomy. We were there with a hit record. And I remember people used to, if I was on a bus or something, the track would come on or somebody would be playing it, and they'd go, "Wow, what a great song." And it was our record, and I would say, "Yeah, that's Air Supply." They go, "Yeah, who's that?" I say, "Oh, I don't know," So it was it was rather bizarre, but we had to get used to it quickly. So our job was to get people to not only know the song, but to know who we were too,
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about that, like how do you go about doing that? Through your music, or?
Well, we have to get in the trenches, and we did a lot of shows in Australia. Unfortunately, at that point, having a hit record, we were able to get some nice venues, nice shows, you know. We never made a lot of money at it because you didn't in Australia in those days, but at least we went in the trenches and we did all the pubs in Australia, because most of the venues, certainly then in Australia in 75, 76, were all pubs, and they were serious pubs. They were big venues, and they were rough and tumble, and even the women were very, what's the word? They'd get into a fight in a heartbeat, with anyone.
Right.
They had great character, and they were great people, and they just wanted to go out and drink a lot of beer and listen to a band, which was us. So we were able to get gigs easily enough, but they were rock and roll gigs, and here we were with this big ballad, and in a climate of AC/DC and Midnight Oil, and we actually played with AC/DC a few times as an opening act, and the music couldn't have been different. We had this big ballad, and we were these guys wearing these white suits, and then here comes AC/DC just blowing the roof off everything, and they were incredible in those days. I mean, they always were, but we kind of got thrown to the lions very quickly, and we had to survive. We had to, just do it, because we had a big record, and we said, well, we need to let people know who we are now, and which we did. But it took a long time, So it was done backwards for us.
Opening for like big name bands or artists, before you're established.
Yeah.
What's that? First of all, what's that experience like? And also, what do you learn from that?
Well, the experience for us certainly was, God, we're going to get killed out here,
All right.
And we did. We got killed, but we didn't buckle under. We just said, okay, we've got to do it. This is who we are. We've got a hit record. They don't know who we are. We're going to go out there and sing a lot of ballads, and they don't know. They only know that one song. We're going to get murdered. And they're all coming to see another artist. It was AC/DC or the Angels or Midnight Oil, and we used to be backstage going, "Oh my God, I'm dreading going out there," because we'd get bottles thrown at us and cans and stuff like that, and like, "Boo, get off." Because they were a hardcore rock and roll crowd,
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't buckle, as I said. We just said, okay, we're going to do our stuff. And the more we got heckled, the more we dug in, and we wouldn't give up,
Yeah.
Consequently, we're here today, 45 years later.
Well, say you guys still do a lot of shows, when shows can be done again.
Yeah.
Do you think those early days, that kept you guys doing so many shows, and that's what led to you guys still doing so many shows today?
I do, because it gave us great character. Plus, at the same time, the band was getting good. Sometimes we would do 3 gigs a night, because in Australia you had to do that to make a decent living. You had to go to one pub, then break down after you do an hour set or an hour and a half set. Go to another one, do the same thing, and go to a third one quite often, just to make ends meet. So you'd be done about 2 a.m, but that gave us, it made the band really tight, and we got into that rock and roll stream, if you like. We obviously began to know all the bands, and we became really good friends. There was a great camaraderie in those days, because all the bands were driving all night, interstate and vast distances, and just to survive. So everybody was supporting everybody else. And it was a great time. It was really hard work, but at the same time, we were learning our craft. We were learning what's going on. And then when we were open for Rod in Australia, Rod Stewart, we were ready for it, and we'd done a lot of the work, and the band was pretty tight,
Yeah. Later on, would you watch the opening bands for Air Supply?
Yeah, I always watch them. Yeah, and I always have a lot of support for them, because it's a tough place. You've got to you've got to get out there, to a crowd that doesn't want to see you, if you're an opening act. I mean, when we opened for Rod, even in the US, they had no idea who we were. We didn't have a hit record. We were just this band from Australia that nobody wanted to see. But, that's part of growing and learning your art and your craft, and you have to learn it. I think a lot of bands buckle under at that point and they say, God, I've had enough of this. I'm going to get a real job. But, it's like the many are called but few are chosen, but we had no choice. We had to keep doing it because we had no skills in any other profession at all. Plus, we wanted to do this. We felt we were, not the chosen one, but we felt we had something to offer if we were given the right platform. But we had to earn that platform, and it took a long time,
Yeah.
I think when we arrived in 1980 around the world, and certainly in America, people thought, oh, it's an overnight success, but it really wasn't. We'd been in the trenches and, we had no money or anything. And so we were very lucky when that happened. I'm very happy about it, too.
Yeah. You said many times, even here that, for you, like performing live's the best part. But during the 80s, when MTV starts to rise, well, what's that like, the rise of, have to do music videos?
Well, yeah, you have to kind of follow trends. We've never really been a video band, In fact, I never really enjoyed making them. I don't know why. I know a lot of bands are like that too. I mean, like, for instance, Duran Duran, their whole career was formulated on all those great videos. And the great thing was they had great songs and the videos were fantastic. So they created their whole career around that. But for us, it was more the music, it was more the songs. So we didn't really have another vehicle. But with MTV, everything changed, In fact, MTV never played us in our whole career. VH1 did.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can you believe that? VH1 did, which was their kind of softer offshoot, if you like. They played us, but MTV didn't. I used to watch it all the time, but it gave a lot of artists a great career. And you didn't have to play. A lot of them didn't have to play live. They just made a great video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it's about the music, about the song. So you've written all the songs, I think, for Aerosmith.
Yeah,
right?
Most of them. Yeah, there's a couple I didn't write, but yeah.
Yeah. What's that process like to write a song, especially when you have the same singer for the songs? Do you ever do you write out the lyrics and then you think like how he's going to sing them? Do they ever change, depending on how you envision him performing them?
Well, not really. The thing is, I've always written songs, even before Russell and I met in Superstar. I'd written probably about 500 songs at that point. So it's something I've always done. Even I started writing songs when I was 11, and I had no idea what I was doing or why I was doing it. And so after all this time, I've kind of got used to it. But it's something I do every day, and I'm always thinking about it. But if I do come up with a new song, which I do often, I don't really think of Russell's voice. I just write the song first. Then afterwards, I go, oh, okay, it's about this. And then I'll think, will Russell like that? Or should I change the lyrics? Or, usually he's okay with it. In fact, almost always he's okay with it. But the thing is, with having Russell as the singer, it makes it kind of easy for me, if you like, because he's always there and he doesn't get involved in other aspects of our career. He just wants to sing, which gives me a wide canvas to do whatever I want. Sometimes usually it's a big epic ballad, but also there's a lot of rock and roll stuff in there, so I can really do whatever I want, It's great.
I know you write a lot of poetry too. What's the difference between writing poetry and music, and not just technically, but just
it's a different animal for me, at least. Writing poetry it's not that it's more difficult than a song. It's a different space to get into. I mean, with a song, if I sit down at a piano and want to write a song, I'll start playing a piano or the guitar, and I know that something's going to happen. I'm going to come up with something within a few minutes that's going to be okay, are going to be cool. And I either grab onto it and take it to fruition, or I go, no, that's not going anywhere, and I'll go somewhere else. But with poetry, it's a more sedate experience. I have to be really relaxed, and I have to let that space come over me. Like, for instance, you can't write beautiful lines of prose if you're kind of stressed out or you're in a hurry. So that's the difference between that and songs. Plus, with the song, you have the music and you've got the lyrics, and they both support each other. But with poetry, you have to get everything across in just a few lines, and it has to be complete. And that's it's not that it's difficult, it's just the space to get into, the access is more limited.
Yeah. Is one more personal than the other?
It is. I think the poetry is more personal to the author than a song, simply because a song, you have other people come in playing different instruments usually, and a singer, of course. So they bring their part into the song. But with a poem, it's pretty much just the author, and so you're really bearing your soul to someone, and there's no escaping it. You can't say, "Oh, I didn't mean that," because whatever you say is what you mean. And but at the same time, I think poetry is much more rewarding, because it's a great feeling after you've written, for instance, say 3 or 4 verses of something, and even if they're short. And you've got across that feeling, that universal feeling that you were trying to get across. And if you actually are successful at that, it's a wonderful feeling. It really is. I'm sure, for people in other professions like doctors or lawyers or even mechanics, when they finish something that's really cool, they go, "Oh, wow," it's a feeling of accomplishment, which is a beautiful thing in any profession.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of a poem?
Oh, absolutely. Would you like to hear one?
I would love to.
That's very kind of you to ask. I mean, I love reading poetry. This is a poem called "Am I?" and it's really about pausing for a moment and thinking about life and the universe and everything, and wondering what your part is in it. And sometimes when you stop and think about the real simple things in life, you realize that you are actually attached to it. Like, for instance, when you see a beautiful sunrise or a sunset, you become attached to it, and it becomes a part of you. And that's why you can write about what you see, and why so many people write it differently, because it comes from a different place. So this is a moment where I just stopped, and I was wondering if I'm a part of everything that I'm looking at. And at this particular time, I thought I was. And then it goes back to its source, which is at the end. But this is called "Am I?" Am I the pebble lying in the stream, or the water freed from melting snow? Am I a dreamer's sleeping dream that has no home, nowhere to go? Am I a thought to build the bridge between 2 points of view? I am at least one thing I know, a solitary monument that always longs for you. Am I the quiver of a desert flower, or the roots that lie in sacred ground? Am I trapped in my ivory tower until the day I knock it down? Am I the curious dragonfly of orange and of blue? I am all things, of that I'm sure, but nothing less and nothing more than one that longs for you.
That's very nice.
Yeah. So I'm sure you can get where I'm trying to go with it. It's just an expression of suddenly feeling you're a part of everything around you, and that's a great feeling,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very nice. And writing something like that, or the music, when you perform it then later, because if since your band's been together for 45 years,
yeah.
When you perform it today, you're a different person than you were when you wrote it. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So,
yeah.
So when you perform it, does that take you back to kind of the mindset of that time, or does the performance song ever change depending on like what kind of person you are today?
It does change, yeah. And once you've written a song, it's a thing. It's alive and it becomes like a seed. But then when you want to perform it at whatever time, even if it's later on, it does change because everybody's coming in and bringing their parts. And so you have to be prepared to let it go. And sometimes in the studio, when people start playing, you hope it's going to be a certain way, but then it starts to move, it's got to evolve, which is inevitable. And sometimes it's a little sad to see it evolve, but you have to be prepared to let it go. It's kind of like children, they're babies, they're born, they're babies, and they grow up, and everything's beautiful. Then there comes a time when they want to leave home. So you have to let them go, and they have to become what you once were. So that's a difficult thing. But I'm used to it now, and I'm used to seeing it change and seeing my perspective on it change. Like if we've been playing a song, a lot of songs, a lot of the big hits, we've played for a long time, but I still enjoy playing them because of that, because they're different every night. Like the guitar player may play a different solo in the middle, or I may try and sing it differently because I'm a different person, I mean, if I came out with Lost in Love Now as a new song, I don't think in the climate we are in now that it would be so successful because it's a different kind of song. Now there's a lot of drum machines and a lot of rap and techno and everything, which is cool. But I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Do you ever do live poetry readings?
I read one at every show we do.
Okay.
In the middle, there's a moment where I get 5 minutes and I recite a poem, and then I'll sing a song, usually on my own with guitar or something. So it's a little a moment for a poetry reading. And at first, I've done it for years. And at first I thought, wow, I can't really do that. But Russell was the one, he said, you should really recite a poem. And I thought, well, I'm here in the middle of a rock and roll show, and I'm going to stop and I'm going to read a poem.
Yeah.
And it was like in the early days when we first began, when we spoke about a few minutes ago. I said to myself, God, I'm going to get murdered. Everybody's going to go to the bathroom and they're going to start mumbling. But you know what? It's completely the opposite. And it really surprised me. You can hear a pin drop because I keep everything, all my poems are simple anyway, but it's dead quiet, and it's a lovely moment that I really enjoy now. And I think people grab hold of that moment and they must think, oh, this is really cool. It's a different thing, because I don't think anybody else does it. I know Leonard Cohen used to do it, but sadly he's gone. So I don't know other people that do that, especially in a rock and roll band. Just stop everything. Everybody leaves the stage and I recite a poem. But I never want it to be about me. I don't have that kind of ego. It's not about me. It's about the moment and the words,
Yeah.
And in fact, if I could do it off stage, I would do it off stage, but Russell wouldn't let me do that. But It's a nice moment, and I think it adds to the evening because it's so different,
Yeah, I think it was like a more intimate moment with the audience.
It is, and there are those intimate people certainly in our audience that are there, and without fail, when we leave the building, there are usually people outside, usually the hardcore fans, and they always mention the poem, or some guy or a lady may come up, the next morning in a coffee shop if they see us somewhere, and they'll go, I was at your show last night, and they'll say, I loved your poem. So that fills me with a great feeling that it's okay to do that, even though it was terrifying the first few times. But now it's okay, because there are different kind of people, and there are some people that think like me that get kind of deep and drift off. So there are those people there, and this is for them. But everyone enjoys it, which really surprised me initially.
Yeah. That's interesting too. That you guys you do so many concerts, and then something like that would be terrifying to you. Doing the poem.
Right. Yeah. Well, it really was, because I thought, well, they're not going to enjoy this. They came to hear Lost in Love and All Out of Love, etc. But, I think the change is something that they enjoy. And plus our audience, they come for a reason. And it's actually not just to hear the big hits. They come for several reasons. I think one of the reasons is they may come is to see that we're still around, and probably say, oh, I remember those guys. I'm going to check them out. And then they're very surprised because the show's a really good show. It's a rock and roll show. But that part, the poetry part, is good. And it gives me a lot of confidence that it's okay to write these really deep phrases and deep words. But when I do recite it, I really mean it, and I engage them. And I'm a great believer in if you're going to do something, put everything into it, So I do that. And when you do that in whatever thing you may be doing, it engages people and people take notice, And you could be a mechanic or whatever. But if you really engage, something happens,
Yeah. A little different from that is when asked about the Lost in Love experience, because you guys, do a lot of the songs. With a symphony. What was that experience like? Because I would assume that really changes the feeling of the music.
Oh, it did. I've always wanted to do an orchestral album, and I've always felt that our music is very much geared for that. I mean, we've had songs, we've had orchestras on songs in the studio on regular, normal albums, but I wanted to do a live one. And this opportunity came up with the Prague Symphony, and who were regarded as one of the greatest orchestras in Europe. And it came up, and I thought, wow, I'd really like to do that. And I got hold of them, and they said, yeah, we'd love to do that. So it happened, and it took like 3 days of recording. But the great thing was, it was in Prague, obviously, and well, first of all, I'd never been there before, but the studio we used was the soundstage for Lawrence of Arabia, where they recorded that.
Oh, wow.
A lot of other incredible soundtracks from the 60s, where these great conductors and composers worked, and that was a great thrill. But then the sound in that room was just something else. It was amazing. So it was like off my bucket list. I wanted to do that, and I wanted the album to sound really good, and I'm very proud of it. It's very string heavy, but I love that. I'm always telling our sound engineer at the front, and I come and check, I say, are the strings loud? And he'll go, yeah, they're loud. And I say, no, they're not. They need to be super loud. I just love, they're so passionate, I just love that feeling. I love orchestras.
Yeah, it sounded great. I listened to it last night.
Oh, far out. Oh, thank you. That's great.
I loved it. Yeah. And when I announce you're on, if some people ask some questions, just ask a couple because there's too many to ask. But okay. Michael J. Epstein wants to know, I'm actually curious how they chose their songs. I'm a big Jim Steinman fan, and I wonder if they were just presented songs to choose from by the label.
Well, the Steinman song came through our record executive, Clive Davis, who is legendary. And in fact, I spoke to Clive the last couple of days. He called me out of the blue because we're doing a live show of his next week. But he had that song. He knew Steinman, of course, and Steinman had great success with Meat Loaf. Incredible songs. And he played it for us, and he said, would you be interested in doing this? And at that point, we really weren't. But then, I thought, well, Russell was into it, and I thought, it's a different sound for us. Is that going to be okay? And Russell said, yeah, it's going to be great, which it was. I've always been a fan of Steinman, of the way he records. And we got a chance to go in there with him, and we used the E Street Band, was the band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Jim was there because he produced the track, obviously. And he was fabulous, and Russell sang it in one take. And I remember he sang it, and Jim looked at us and he said, wow, that was great. And I said, yeah, I know. And he said, I think that's it. I said, yeah, I think you're right. And that, because Russell used to sing one takes all the time, The One That You Love, All Out of Love was all one take. So that was a great experience, working with those great musicians. And then, of course, Jim had that song, which only got to number 2, because he had the number 1 song too with Bonnie Tyler. So it was a great move, but it really, the credit goes to Jim and to Clive Davis for that, But great song, and it's a huge song that went live, of course,
Yeah, yeah. And I want to ask one last question too, is because you talk a lot about the Beatles being your big inspiration.
Yeah.
Was there one particular song, or was it really just like the whole package of the Beatles?
It's really the whole package, because when I first heard the Beatles, it was in 1963, and somebody at school said, "Have you heard this band, the Beatles?" I said, "No," and they said, "Go and check them out." And they had a BBC TV show on a Tuesday afternoon at 5:00. Called Pop Go the Beatles, and they sang live in London in the studio. They'd sing three songs. So I'd dash home from school and I'd listen, and I was just enthralled. Just the sound and the way they spoke, because where I come from in Nottingham, it's a different accent than the Liverpool, but the Liverpool is more pronounced. And I remember thinking, oh wow, just because you have an English accent, it can be cool. Instead of, oh, there's those guys from Liverpool. But they just sounded so good, and I got into them heavily, simply because they were great songs. I mean, I have several my favorite Beatles song is If I Fell from A Hard Day's Night, which is so beautiful and simple. But I just got into them because I think they were the greatest songwriters ever. And, we only have McCartney left now, and he's just incredible. So it was great. I felt very fortunate growing up during the Beatles' time, from when I started to take notice in 63. And of course, they stopped performing in 66, so they were only around playing live for 3 years. But I did get to see them in 1964. I saw them at a cinema, and it just changed everything for me. It changed my whole life,
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Well, I appreciate you doing this with me, taking the time.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Neal. I've enjoyed it very, very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it as well. And happy birthday this week.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was last Thursday. Yeah, I finally made it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do anything cool for the 70th birthday?
Well, I had all kinds of plans. Originally I was going to maybe go to England or do a few things. But in the end, I stayed home, and I was very happy just to stay home because, the virus and everything was a bit dangerous. And I was very happy to do that. And in the end, I was glad, I did my little thing with myself because it was a big birthday. I turned 70. Yeah. And I thought, oh, okay, it's not that bad. So, but now let's move on and carry on with life. So I had a beautiful day, but thanks for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome. And have a good rest of the day.
And you too. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.